The sun rose gently over the horizon, casting a golden glow across the picturesque coastal town where Emma and Daniel's wedding was about to take place. The air smelled of salt from the nearby ocean, mixed with the sweet fragrance of flowers that adorned every corner of the venue. It was one of those days that felt like it had been pulled straight out of a fairy tale, a day when everything seemed perfect, almost too good to be true. Emma stood in front of the mirror in her bridal suite, adjusting the delicate lace veil on her head. Her gown shimmered softly under the morning light streaming through the window, and her hands trembled slightly, not from nerves, but from excitement. She couldn't believe this moment had finally arrived. For months, she and Daniel had poured their hearts into planning every detail of their big day, from choosing the exact shade of white for the roses to deciding which song would play during their first dance. Nothing had been left to chance. Every decision was made with love, care, and endless conversations late into the night. Downstairs, Daniel paced nervously near the altar set up on the beach. His best man tried to calm him down, with jokes, but Daniel barely heard them. His mind was racing, not because he doubted his choice, but because he was overwhelmed by how much he loved Emma. He thought back to the first time they met at a local coffee shop 2 years ago. She had dropped her notebook full of sketches, and as he helped her pick them up, they struck up a conversation that lasted hours. That day, neither of them knew it would lead to this, their happily ever after beginning right here on this sandy shore. Guests began arriving, dressed in their finest outfits, carrying smiles wide enough to light up the entire coastline. The ceremony area was breathtaking. Rows of wooden chairs decorated with ribbons lined the space, leading up to an archway covered in cascading white roses. Soft instrumental music played in the background, blending seamlessly with the sound of waves lapping against the shore. Children ran barefoot along the sand, laughing and chasing seagulls, while adults found their seats eagerly awaiting the main event. As the clock ticked closer to the start of the ceremony, Emma took a deep breath and stepped outside, linking arms with her father. Together they walked down the makeshift aisle between the chairs, drawing gasps of admiration from the crowd. Daniel turned around the moment he saw her, his eyes widening in awe. In that instant, all the noise faded away. The murmurs of guests, the rustling leaves, even the distant cry of birds. All he could see was Emma, glowing like the morning sun itself. When they reached the altar, Emma's father kissed her cheek before handing her over to Daniel. Their fingers intertwined naturally, as if they were always meant to fit together. The officiant began speaking, sharing words about love, commitment, and partnership, but Emma and Daniel barely noticed. They were lost in each other's gaze, replaying memories of their journey together in their minds. Finally, came the part everyone had been waiting for, the exchange of vows. Emma went first, her voice steady despite the lump forming in her throat. "Daniel," she began, "you are my rock, my safe haven, and my greatest adventure. You've taught me what it means to truly love someone, not just in words, but in actions, in little gestures, and in moments we share without saying anything at all." Tears welled up in her eyes, but she didn't wipe them away. She wanted to remember this moment exactly as it was. Daniel cleared his throat, gripping Emma's hands tighter. "Emma, you make my world brighter just by being in it. Before I met you, I didn't know what real happiness felt like. But now, standing here with you, I can't imagine my life without you. You're my partner, my confidant, and my forever." Their heartfelt promises brought tears to nearly everyone present, including some of the toughest-looking uncles who pretended to cough loudly to hide their emotions. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, the couple sealed their vows with a kiss so tender it felt like time stood still. Applause erupted around them, echoing across the beach as if nature itself was celebrating their union. After the ceremony, guests moved to the reception area, a beautifully decorated banquet hall overlooking the sea. Tables draped in ivory cloth sparkled with crystal centerpieces and flickering candles. Waiters circulated with trays of hors d'oeuvres, and a live band played soft melodies in the background. Laughter bubbled throughout the room as people toasted to the newlyweds' future. Emma and Daniel entered the hall hand in hand, greeted by cheers and applause once again. They cut the cake together, fed each other bites amidst playful giggles, and danced their first dance as husband and wife. Everything seemed magical, almost surreal. Yet, unbeknownst to anyone, lurking beneath the surface of this joyous celebration was a danger no one could have anticipated, a danger that would soon shatter the happiness filling the room. For now, though, the newlyweds basked in the warmth of their loved one's presence, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing just beyond the horizon. As the reception buzzed with energy, Emma and Daniel found themselves swept up in a whirlwind of congratulations, laughter, and heartfelt hugs. The room was alive with joy. People were dancing, clinking glasses, and sharing stories about how the couple had met, fallen in love, and grown together over the years. It was everything they'd dreamed of, a celebration filled with warmth, love, and memories to last a lifetime. But amidst all the excitement, something felt off. Emma noticed it first, as she stood near the dessert table admiring the towering wedding cake adorned with fresh flowers. She suddenly felt lightheaded. At first, she dismissed it as exhaustion. After all, planning a wedding wasn't easy, and today had been a whirlwind of emotions and activity. She reached for Daniel's hand, squeezing it gently as if drawing strength from his touch. "Are you okay?" he asked, his brow furrowing slightly when he saw her pale expression. "I'm fine," she replied quickly, forcing a smile. "Just a little dizzy. Maybe I need some water." But before either of them could move toward the bar or grab a drink, Daniel froze. His grip on her hand tightened involuntarily. "Wait, I don't feel so great either," he admitted quietly, glancing around to ensure no one else heard him. He didn't want to ruin the moment by making a fuss. Still, there was no denying it. His stomach churned uncomfortably and his chest felt heavy, like an invisible weight was pressing down on him. They exchanged worried looks, but decided not to say anything just yet. Instead, they tried to focus on the festivities unfolding around them. Their friends and family were having such a wonderful time. It seemed selfish to interrupt the mood with their own concerns. Besides, maybe it was nothing more than nerves catching up with them. Weddings were stressful events, even for the happiest couples. As the evening wore on, however, things only got worse. During one particularly lively toast given by Daniel's childhood friend, Emma found herself struggling to concentrate on the words being spoken. Her vision blurred intermittently, and every breath seemed harder to take than the last. She leaned closer to Daniel, whispering urgently, "Something's wrong, I can't breathe properly." Daniel nodded, his face pale now too. "Me neither," he murmured under his breath. "Let's step outside for a minute, get some fresh air." Without drawing attention to themselves, they slipped away from the crowded banquet hall and made their way toward the door. No one noticed. They were too busy laughing at the best man's embarrassing anecdotes about Daniel's younger days. Outside, the cool night air greeted them, carrying the faint scent of salt water from the nearby ocean. For a brief moment, Emma thought the change of scenery might help. She closed her eyes, taking slow, deliberate breaths, hoping the dizziness would pass. But relief never came. Instead, Emma's knees buckled unexpectedly, and she stumbled forward, barely managing to catch herself against a nearby railing. "Emma!" Daniel exclaimed, rushing to her side. He wrapped an arm around her waist, steadying her as best he could. "What's happening? Are you okay?" I don't know," she stammered, clutching her chest. Panic bubbled inside her as she realized this wasn't normal. This wasn't just fatigue or stress. Something was seriously wrong. And then Daniel faltered too. His legs gave out beneath him, and he collapsed onto the ground beside her, gasping for air. "I can't," he managed to choke out before his voice trailed off entirely. His hands trembled as he tried to reach for hers, but even that simple movement felt impossible. For a few terrifying moments they sat there together, unable to speak, unable to move, barely able to breathe. The world around them faded into a blur of shadows and distant sounds, the cheerful music from inside the hall, the gentle crash of waves against the shore, the faint hum of crickets chirping in the grass. None of it mattered anymore. All that existed was the suffocating sensation wrapping itself around their bodies, pulling them deeper into darkness. Inside the banquet hall, guests continued to celebrate, oblivious to the nightmare unfolding just steps away. A few people glanced toward the exit, wondering why the newlyweds hadn't returned yet, but assumed they were simply enjoying a quiet moment alone. After all, what bride and groom wouldn't want to steal a few minutes away from the chaos to soak in the reality of their new life together? It wasn't until someone finally decided to check on them that the truth came crashing down. One of the bridesmaids stepped outside, curious about their prolonged absence, only to find Emma and Daniel sprawled on the ground, unconscious and unresponsive. Her scream shattered the festive atmosphere, sending shockwaves through the entire gathering. Within seconds, chaos erupted. People rushed outside, panic spreading like wildfire as they realized the severity of the situation. Someone called 911 while others knelt beside the couple, frantically trying to revive them. CPR was administered. Voices shouted instructions and tears streamed down faces as everyone prayed for a miracle. The joyful ambiance of the reception dissolved into sheer terror as reality set in. Something unthinkable had happened to Emma and Daniel. Back inside the hall, confusion reigned supreme. Guests huddled together, whispering anxiously among themselves, searching for answers that no one had. What could have caused this? Was it food poisoning? A medical emergency? Or was it something far more sinister? Rumors began swirling, each theory more unsettling than the last. Some speculated foul play, while others wondered if the couple had unknowingly consumed something dangerous during the meal. Meanwhile, paramedics arrived in record time, their flashing lights casting eerie shadows across the once happy venue. They worked tirelessly to stabilize Emma and Daniel, loading them onto stretchers and rushing them to the nearest hospital. But despite their best efforts, hope dwindled with each passing second. By the time they reached the emergency room, it was already too late. The news hit the guests like a tidal wave. Friends and family members gathered in stunned silence, grappling with the incomprehensible loss. How could this have happened? Just hours ago, Emma and Daniel had been glowing with happiness, surrounded by loved ones, embarking on the journey of a lifetime. Now they were gone, taken far too soon, leaving behind a void that could never be filled. In the midst of the grief and disbelief, one question lingered in everyone's minds. Why? What force had stolen these two beautiful souls away so suddenly, so cruelly? The search for answers would begin soon, but for now all anyone could do was mourn the devastating end of a love story that should have lasted a lifetime. The chaos that erupted outside the banquet hall was like a storm breaking through a calm sea. One moment, the wedding reception had been filled with laughter, music, and celebration. The next, it descended into sheer panic. The bridesmaid, who had stepped outside to check on Emma and Daniel, let out a blood-curdling scream that pierced through the air, silencing the band mid-song and freezing everyone in their tracks. "What's wrong?" someone shouted as heads turned toward the door. Guests began rushing outside, abandoning their drinks and plates, their faces etched with confusion and growing dread. What they saw stopped them cold. Emma and Daniel lying motionless on the ground, their bodies limp and pale under the dim glow of the string lights hanging above. Around them, a small group of people knelt, frantically trying to wake them up, shaking their shoulders, calling their names but receiving no response. "Oh my God," cried Emma's mother, her voice cracking as she pushed her way through the crowd. Her hands flew to her mouth when she saw her daughter sprawled lifelessly on the pavement. "Emma! Emma, can you hear me?" She dropped to her knees beside her, tears streaming down her face. Daniel's father wasn't far behind, his face ghostly white as he stared at his son, unable to comprehend what was happening. Someone yelled, "Call 911." Phones were whipped out instantly, fingers trembling as numbers were dialed. Within minutes, emergency services were alerted, and the operator's calm but urgent voice instructed those on the scene to begin CPR. A man in a suit, Daniel's uncle, volunteered to take charge. He knelt beside Emma, placing his hands over her chest and pressing down rhythmically, counting aloud to keep time. Another guest did the same for Daniel, their movements desperate and mechanical, driven by adrenaline and fear. "Come on, Emma. Stay with us," the uncle pleaded between compressions. "Breathe, just breathe." His voice cracked under the weight of emotion, but he didn't stop. Others gathered around, holding on to each other for support, sobbing uncontrollably. The once happy atmosphere had transformed into something unrecognizable, a scene of raw terror and heartbreak. As the paramedics arrived, their flashing red and blue lights illuminated the darkened parking lot, casting an eerie glow over the crowd. People stepped back instinctively, creating a path for the medical team to rush through. The sight of the stretcher and oxygen tanks brought a mix of hope and despair. Could they still save Emma and Daniel? Or was it already too late? The paramedics worked quickly, assessing the situation with practiced precision. They attached monitors to the couple, checking for vital signs, but the readings were grim. Both Emma and Daniel showed signs of severe respiratory distress, their breathing shallow and irregular. Oxygen masks were placed over their faces, and IV lines were inserted into their arms. Despite the urgency of their actions, there was a somberness in their expressions that spoke volumes. "We're losing them," one of the paramedics called out, his voice tight with tension. "Keep pushing." Time seemed to slow down as the team loaded Emma and Daniel onto stretchers and wheeled them toward the ambulance. Friends and family followed helplessly, their cries echoing in the night. "Please don't let this happen," whispered Daniel's younger sister, clutching her phone so tightly her knuckles turned white. "They just got married. This isn't fair." Inside the ambulance, the paramedics continued their efforts, administering medications and performing advanced life support techniques. The siren wailed loudly as the vehicle sped toward the hospital, leaving behind a stunned and grieving crowd. Back at the venue, silence fell over the banquet hall. The band had packed up their instruments and waitstaff stood frozen, unsure of what to do next. Plates of uneaten food sat abandoned on tables, candles flickering softly in the breeze. It was as if the entire world had paused, unwilling or unable to move forward after such a devastating blow. In the hospital emergency room, doctors took over from the paramedics, working tirelessly to revive the couple. Machines beeped incessantly, filling the sterile room with a cacophony of sounds. Nurses moved swiftly, handing tools and supplies to the physicians, their faces masks of focus and determination. Outside the ER doors, family members paced anxiously, clinging to any shred of hope they could muster. Every second felt like an eternity, every beep of the machines a reminder of how fragile life truly was. Finally, after what seemed like hours, a doctor emerged from the room, his expression grave. He removed his mask and approached the waiting relatives, his voice heavy with sorrow. "I'm so sorry," he said, pausing to gather himself. "We did everything we could, but we lost them both." The words hit like a tidal wave, crashing over everyone present. Gasps and wails erupted simultaneously, echoing through the hallway. Emma's mother collapsed into her husband's arms, sobbing uncontrollably. Daniel's father sank into a chair, burying his face in his hands. The reality of the situation was too much to bear. Their beloved children, whose lives had been full of promise and love, were gone forever. Back at the wedding venue, news of the tragedy spread slowly, rippling through the crowd like wildfire. Some refused to believe it at first, convinced it must be a misunderstanding. Others broke down immediately, overwhelmed by grief. The bride and groom's closest friends huddled together, holding each other tightly as tears streamed down their faces. Even strangers who had only met Emma and Daniel briefly during the ceremony found themselves mourning the loss of two souls taken far too soon. As the initial shock began to settle, questions started swirling. What could have caused this? How had two seemingly healthy individuals suddenly fallen ill and died within minutes of each other? Speculation ran rampant. Some suggested food poisoning, pointing to the elaborate meal served earlier in the evening. Others wondered if it might have been an allergic reaction or a freak accident. But none of these theories made sense. Why would both Emma and Daniel experience identical symptoms at the same time? One guest remembered seeing the couple step outside earlier, mentioning something about needing fresh air. Could it have been exposure to something outside? Perhaps fumes from a nearby generator or exhaust from a car? These thoughts lingered in the back of everyone's minds, but without answers they remained mere guesses. In the days that followed, investigators arrived to piece together the events leading up to the tragedy. They combed through the venue, interviewing witnesses, examining food samples and inspecting every detail of the surroundings. Their goal was simple yet daunting: to uncover the truth behind Emma and Daniel's sudden deaths. For the families and friends left behind, the pain was unbearable. Photographs of the happy couple adorned social media feeds, accompanied by heartfelt tributes from loved ones. "They were meant to grow old together," wrote one friend. "Their love was the kind you read about in books." Another added, "This isn't how their story was supposed to end." While the investigation continued, the community rallied around the grieving families, offering support in any way they could. Fundraisers were organized to cover funeral expenses, and memorials were held to honor Emma and Daniel's memory. Their wedding day, which should have marked the beginning of a beautiful new chapter, instead became a poignant reminder of how fleeting life can be. Yet even in the midst of unimaginable loss, there was a glimmer of light. Emma and Daniel's love story, though tragically cut short, inspired those around them to cherish their own relationships more deeply. Their legacy lived on, not just in the memories of those who knew them, but in the lessons they unknowingly imparted about love, resilience, and the importance of treasuring every moment we have with the people we care about most. The days that followed the tragedy were a blur of grief, confusion, and relentless questions. Friends and family members struggled to come to terms with the loss of Emma and Daniel, two vibrant souls whose lives had been snuffed out in an instant. The pain was raw and unrelenting, a heavy weight pressing down on everyone who had known them. But as much as they mourned, there was also an urgent need for answers. What could have caused such a sudden and devastating turn of events? How had two healthy young people died so inexplicably on their wedding day? Investigators worked tirelessly to unravel the mystery, combing through every detail of the venue, the reception, and the hours leading up to the couple's collapse. They interviewed guests, staff, and vendors, piecing together fragments of information like detectives solving a puzzle. Food samples were sent to labs for testing, security footage reviewed, and environmental factors examined. Yet, despite their efforts, no clear cause emerged, at least not at first. It wasn't until one seemingly insignificant clue caught the attention of the lead investigator that things began to fall into place. A waiter mentioned seeing Emma and Daniel sitting briefly inside a vintage car parked near the banquet hall before stepping outside. At the time, it hadn't seemed unusual. After all, the car was part of the wedding decor, a romantic touch, meant to symbolize the couple's grand exit later that evening. But this small detail piqued the investigators' interest enough to warrant further examination. The car in question was a classic convertible, a sleek, shiny vehicle rented specifically for the occasion. Its polished exterior gleamed under the lights, making it a centerpiece of the celebration. Guests had taken countless photos beside it, admiring its beauty and charm. No one could have imagined that beneath its glamorous surface lay a deadly secret. When forensic experts inspected the vehicle, they discovered something alarming. The exhaust system was faulty. Corroded parts and improper seals allowed carbon monoxide, a colorless, odorless gas, to leak into the cabin whenever the engine was running. Carbon monoxide poisoning occurs when this toxic gas builds up in enclosed spaces, displacing oxygen in the bloodstream and depriving vital organs of the air they need to function. Symptoms include dizziness, nausea, shortness of breath, and confusion, all signs Emma and Daniel had exhibited before collapsing. As the investigation unfolded, the horrifying truth became undeniable. On the night of their wedding, Emma and Daniel had stepped outside to escape the noise and commotion of the reception. Feeling overwhelmed, they sought solace in the quiet elegance of the vintage car. Unaware of the danger lurking within, they sat inside with the engine idling, perhaps thinking it would provide a peaceful moment away from the crowd. In reality, they were inhaling lethal amounts of carbon monoxide with each passing second. Why? Realization hit everyone like a punch to the gut. Something as simple as a mechanical flaw, a defect that might have gone unnoticed during routine inspections, had robbed the world of two remarkable individuals. It was a cruel twist of fate, a stark reminder of how fragile life can be. The very car that was supposed to carry them off into their happily ever after had instead sealed their tragic end. News of the findings spread quickly, leaving the community reeling. People couldn't believe what they were hearing. A faulty exhaust pipe. Something so mundane, so preventable, had caused this unimaginable loss. The irony was almost too much to bear. For weeks afterward, conversations revolved around the revelation, with everyone grappling to make sense of it. How could such a beautiful day have turned into such a nightmare? Emma and Daniel's families were devastated by the discovery. While knowing the cause brought some closure, it also deepened their anguish. "If only we'd known," Emma's mother whispered through tears during one particularly difficult moment. "If only someone had checked the car beforehand." Her voice trailed off, unable to finish the thought. Regret hung heavy in the air, mingling with the sorrow already weighing on everyone's hearts. Yet amidst the heartbreak, there were moments of reflection. Friends and family began sharing stories about the couple, recounting memories that highlighted their kindness, humor, and unwavering love for each other. One friend recalled how Emma always made sure to send handwritten thank you notes after receiving gifts, no matter how busy she was. Another remembered Daniel volunteering his weekends to help build homes for those in need. These anecdotes painted a vivid picture of two extraordinary people whose impact extended far beyond their short time together. Their legacy inspired action, too. In the wake of the tragedy, local authorities launched campaigns to raise awareness about the dangers of carbon monoxide poisoning. Flyers were distributed, workshops held, and public service announcements aired on television and radio. The goal was simple: to ensure that no other family would suffer the same fate as Emma and Daniel's loved ones. Rental companies were urged to implement stricter safety checks on vehicles, and event planners were reminded to prioritize safety alongside aesthetics. At the couple's memorial service, hundreds of people gathered to honor their memory. Photos of Emma and Daniel lined the walls, capturing moments from their lives together, laughing at coffee shops, hiking through scenic trails, dancing under twinkling fairy lights. Their favorite songs played softly in the background, filling the room with warmth and nostalgia. Family members delivered heartfelt eulogies, celebrating the joy the couple had brought into their lives and vowing to keep their spirits alive. One particularly moving tribute came from Daniel's younger sister, Lily. Standing before the crowd, her voice trembling but resolute, she said, "Emma and Daniel taught us what true love looks like. Not just in big gestures, but in the little things. They showed us how to care for others, how to find beauty in everyday moments, and how to live fully and fearlessly. Even though they're gone, their love will continue to inspire us. We owe it to them to cherish our own relationships, to take nothing for granted, and to make every moment count." Her words resonated deeply with everyone present, serving as both a reminder of the fragility of life and a call to action. As the service drew to a close, attendees lit candles in Emma and Daniel's honor, holding them aloft as a symbol of hope and remembrance. The flickering flames cast a soft glow over the room, creating an atmosphere of unity and solidarity. Though hearts remained heavy, there was also a sense of peace, a shared understanding that while their time on earth had been brief, Emma and Daniel's love would endure forever. In the months that followed, the community continued to heal. A scholarship fund was established in the couple's name, supporting students pursuing careers in fields related to safety and engineering. Local businesses donated generously, eager to contribute to a cause that honored Emma and Daniel's memory. Meanwhile, friends and family found comfort in coming together, sharing meals, laughter, and tears as they navigated their grief. Though the wound left by their loss would never fully heal, the love Emma and Daniel shared became a beacon of light in the darkness. Their story served as a powerful reminder of the importance of cherishing the people we hold dear, and of ensuring that even the smallest details don't go overlooked. For in the end, It's often the simplest things, a faulty exhaust pipe, a quiet moment in a car, that leave the biggest impact. The aftermath of Emma and Daniel's tragic death left an indelible mark on their community, one that would not fade with time. While the initial shock of their passing gave way to a deep, collective grief, it also sparked something unexpected, a renewed sense of purpose among those who loved them. The couple's untimely end became a catalyst for change, inspiring people to honor their memory by ensuring such a tragedy could never happen again. In the weeks following the funeral, friends and family came together to create a lasting tribute to Emma and Daniel. They decided to establish a foundation in their names, the Emma and Daniel Legacy Fund, dedicated to promoting safety awareness and preventing accidents like the one that had claimed their lives. The mission was clear: educate others about the dangers of carbon monoxide poisoning and advocate for stricter safety standards in rental vehicles, event planning, and beyond. Local businesses rallied behind the cause, donating resources and funds to get the initiative off the ground. Mechanics volunteered their expertise to inspect cars used for weddings and other events, offering free safety checks to ensure no one else would fall victim to a faulty exhaust system. Even schools joined in, incorporating lessons about carbon monoxide risks into science curriculars, teaching students how to recognize symptoms and take preventive measures at home. It wasn't just about remembering Emma and Daniel, it was about protecting future generations from suffering the same fate. The impact of the tragedy extended far beyond the immediate circle of friends and family. News outlets picked up the story, sharing it across social media platforms and national broadcasts. People around the world were moved by the heartbreaking tale of two young lovers whose lives ended so suddenly on what should have been the happiest day of their lives. Messages poured in from strangers, letters, emails, and comments expressing condolences and admiration for the couple's love. Many shared personal stories of near misses or close calls involving carbon monoxide, underscoring just how common and preventable such incidents can be. One particularly touching gesture came from a woman named Sarah, who lived hundreds of miles away. She wrote a heartfelt post online describing how she had narrowly escaped a similar situation years earlier, when her family's furnace malfunctioned during a winter storm. Reading about Emma and Daniel made me realize how lucky I am to still be here, she wrote. Their story has reminded me to check my detectors regularly and spread the word to others. Thank you for sharing their legacy. Inspired by these responses, Emma and Daniel's families organized an annual event called A Day to Remember, held on the anniversary of the wedding. The gathering brought together loved ones, advocates, and supporters to celebrate the couple's life, while continuing to raise awareness about safety issues. Attendees wore white, a nod to Emma's bridal gown, and released balloons into the sky as a symbolic act of letting go and moving forward. Workshops and informational booths were set up, offering practical advice on everything from installing carbon monoxide detectors to recognizing signs of exposure. Each year, more people joined the movement, turning what began as a local effort into a nationwide campaign. For Emma's mother, organizing the event became a way to channel her sorrow into something meaningful. "I'll never stop missing my daughter," she said during one speech. "But if we can save even one life because of what happened to her and Daniel, then their deaths won't have been in vain." Her words resonated deeply with everyone present, reinforcing the idea that love and loss can coexist, transforming pain into action. Daniel's father found solace in mentoring young couples preparing for marriage. He often spoke about the importance of communication, trust, and cherishing every moment together, lessons he believed his son and Emma embodied. "Life is unpredictable," he told one group during a premarital counseling session. "You never know what tomorrow holds, so make today count. Love fully, live fearlessly, and don't let anything stand in the way of your happiness." As the years passed, the legacy of Emma and Daniel continued to grow. Their story was featured in documentaries, books, and educational campaigns aimed at preventing carbon monoxide tragedies. Schools named scholarships after them, encouraging students to pursue careers in public health and safety engineering. Couples planning their own weddings began incorporating safety checks into their preparations, inspired by the heart-wrenching reminder that even the smallest oversight can have devastating consequences. Yet perhaps the most profound effect of all was the shift in perspective it brought to those closest to the couple. Friends and family members learned to appreciate the fleeting nature of life, finding joy in the everyday moments they might otherwise have taken for granted. Birthdays, holidays, and ordinary days alike took on new significance. Laughter returned, albeit tinged with bittersweet memories, as people embraced the beauty of connection and the importance of being present for one another. On quiet evenings, Emma's best friend Rachel would sit by her window, flipping through old photo albums, filled with pictures of the happy couple. There was Emma laughing at Daniel's silly jokes, Daniel surprising Emma with flowers on a random Tuesday, the two of them dancing barefoot in the rain. Though tears still came sometimes, Rachel smiled too, grateful for the time they'd shared. "They taught us how to love," she whispered to herself one night, "and now they're teaching us how to live." In the end, Emma and Daniel's story was not just one of tragedy but also of resilience, hope, and transformation. Their love transcended death, leaving behind a legacy that touched countless lives. Through their untimely passing, they reminded the world of a simple yet profound truth. Life is fragile, precious, and fleeting, but within its brevity lies the opportunity to create something enduring. And so, though their journey ended far too soon, Emma and Daniel's impact will continue to ripple outward, inspiring generations to come.